How would you provide some advice, or what has some of your experience been kind of growing in your career field?
The further that you get into your career, less technical type things that you end up doing and more of the soft skills, working in banking, customer facing, customer service. I acquired some skills doing that, and that's maybe a little bit different than the typical engineer.
What are some things across the industry that you have found to be notable or interesting that capture your attention?
Well, active transportation projects, ATP, is one of the things that a lot of local jurisdictions seem like they can take advantage of, especially if you have a disadvantaged community within your jurisdiction. There's opportunity there. You want to do things that help serve the community.
Big part of your job is helping your clients find funds, right? How are you approaching that?
Well, we have in-house funding experts, and I think a lot of firms nowadays have some kind of funding group, people that spend full-time looking for different funding options. I think it is a full-time job to stay on top of the ever-changing environment related to different types of fundings. I make it clear that I don't know everything, right? Because it's all constantly changing. What's the motivation? What's driving this platform for you going to Washington, D.C. to advocate on behalf of not just this project, but this region? It's admirable. I would say the best project in the Sacramento area.
We got really good feedback, and we were just talking about our project, and it really led to this idea of like, this is real public engagement. People were watching. I say the story that like I knew what I was doing, but I didn't know what I was getting into. Welcome back to Between Two Shovels. In this episode, I invite on Glenn Armstrong, a good friend of mine, senior transportation engineer for 25 years, and we have a great conversation about the industry as a whole, what it means to be a leader, growing up, mentoring young staff, and hopefully this episode has a lot of valuable information for all skill levels in the field of transportation and engineering. Glenn Armstrong, welcome to Between Two Shovels. You're so excited to be here. I can already tell.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Did you ever think you'd be on a podcast with me, Glenn?
No. I didn't think I'd ever be on any kind of podcast.
Well, here you are. You are a privileged guest on Between Two Shovels. And I think I've known you for 25 years now, Glenn.
You have, yeah.
Yes.
We have.
I part of what I want to talk about today is like, how the industry has changed over those 25 years, right? But let's start with some of the beginning of, oh my gosh, you love structures, you love doing lab work, you're a straight A student when it comes to lab work. Anything you want to share about any of those experiences, my friend?
Sure. I mean, the one that stands out clear as day in my mind. I mean, I may not be here if it weren't for you, Derek. I think that was our structures lab class, 113, Professor Castirco, Sacramento State University.
Castirco.
About our junior year, I think.
Yeah.
And that class, we had, a bunch of labs on a weekly basis throughout the semester, and you didn't turn them in until the very end of the semester. And the end of the semester came, and we went to turn in the labs, and he didn't want to let us turn in our labs. We were together, and
Mr. Castirco.
He said that was due 2 weeks ago and tried to shut the door on us. And you stuck your foot in the door and didn't allow him to shut the door.
That was a good time. Yeah.
And
we passed.
We passed,
and we got our degrees.
Yeah.
Yes.
C's get degrees.
Oh. I was a decent student. I got A's, and then I got, C pluses.
Yeah.
So
I worked hard at it.
No doubt.
Some folks it came very easy for, and some folks work for it, and I worked for it.
No doubt. Glenn, you've always had really good interpersonal skills, and engineering is almost like, it's like second career for you in a way, right?
It was, yeah.
Tell me, how did you get into engineering, and how did you transition? Because you were customer service and banking.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about that.
When I was putting myself through school, I worked for Wells Fargo Bank for 8 years, to give you an idea of how long I was in school. And somehow at 18 years old, I had the foresight to think maybe I wouldn't want to do banking for the rest of my life. And I was good at math and science in high school. And so I, started taking math and science classes in college. And then at some point, I thought, well, I like building some bridges. Maybe I'll do civil. Yeah. And it was that little thought that went into that career choice. So, of course, I didn't know what civil engineering actually would do in practice.
Well, what is it that you do today, Glenn? Is that your phone? This man brings a phone into my podcast. I don't even think we should edit that out. I think it's got to stay in.
Well, it's my wife, so
no, it is not. Is she Erica? Erica,
you know my wife. Yeah, you were at our wedding.
Erica, shout out. I'm trying to do a podcast here, and you're calling. He's here. Oh my gosh!
She said, "Don't even be nervous about this podcast. Nobody watched Derek's podcast, anyways."
It's so true. Oh my gosh!
She does watch our podcast though.
I want to come up and visit your guys' new business up there. My wife's been there, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Okay.
But no, I want to go back to my question because it's
the customer service background.
Yeah, I mean, how much of this is important in your field today? Because I had a young man in here just recently, and he was just asking me, how do I develop my communication skills? And I was like, man, it's always going to change. I said, who knew I'd be doing a podcast type of thing, So tell me how, that has been an impact or an influence in your career.
Well, certainly working in banking, customer facing, customer service, I acquired some skills doing that. And that's maybe a little bit different than the typical engineer. And so I think that comes harder for engineers. But the further that you get into your career, the less technical type things that you end up doing and more of those the soft skills, the writing, communicating with clients, things like that. Those are
invaluable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Did you do anything? Did you take were you in Toastmasters or leadership classes on that stuff?
Well, it's funny that, coming out of the banking career and into engineering, I was always really comfortable communicating with others and public speaking and all of that. And then I went, like 10 years where I was just doing engineering stuff and, a little bit of communicating with clients and things, but none of the public speaking, things like that. So when I got to that point in my career where I was doing more of that, I did need to go speak at a public meeting. There were nerves.
Yeah, you felt rusty.
For sure. And so I did do like a Toastmasters through HDR. They offered a Toastmasters program and things. And I felt like that kind of helped.
Sure.
I mean, I remember even getting nervous going to meetings with clients and things. And then, there's interviews, things like that.
How'd you tackle that?
You just
get through it.
Yeah. Well, for me, I like to prepare.
Sure.
Usually before every meeting I go to, I like to, write down some questions in case the conversation gets stale. Even if I feel like I know what I'm going to be talking about, I like to just have some cheat sheet notes. I didn't bring them with me today, but I, quick chat GPT type thing, just to kind of.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
So,
well,
do you do that, Derek?
AI?
Well, I guess both. I mean, you prepare for things.
Well, okay. So like when I have a board meeting, I'm uber prepared. It's the Super Bowl for me. Like it's not that big. It's a very important meeting.
Yeah.
And I am absolutely taking that seriously.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Well, you don't want to be caught off guard.
Correct. And when I have to speak publicly in front of councils or things, I'm generally, I'm decently prepared, but I do often tell myself that I know more about this than anyone. And so, especially, when it comes to speaking in front of a council, if they want to trip me up, That's fine, but I just roll with it. And uh, yeah, I just remind myself that like they want to hear from me.
Right.
Right. That's why I'm there. I remember a story. This was a long time ago. I was probably 24 years old. I was very nervous about going and giving a speech. And I had a mentor at the time. His name is Tim Fleming. He's passed. But he told me, he's just like, Derek, just remember, speak about what you know. Right? Don't go off and start talking about whatever. Speak about what you know. Because the people who are there, they're there because they want to hear what you know. And it sounds so simple. And that piece of advice really just calmed my nerves so much. And I never forgot that. You know, people can spot liars when you're BSing. And if you just stick to what it is you know, you'll be just fine. So I did Toastmasters. I also did the Dale Carnegie training, which I thought was really interesting because they filmed you. Right. And then they would take you off into a side room and watch the video of you and give you good constructive critiques and criticisms and things about how you were doing. And to me, I think that was really, really helpful, is watching myself speak on camera, because that's very similar to how a city council meeting would work. Right. You know, the cameras are on. And so, so I should probably do something like that again.
Well, do you watch these? I was wondering if you watch these. I mean, I was thinking ahead of this conversation. I don't think I've ever listened to myself, not in this kind of a format, never done anything like this before. So am I going to watch it afterwards? And what am I going to think about the way you communicate, the way that you look, your hand gestures, your mannerisms, all of that stuff is probably, but I was thinking, do you do that?
I mean, a little bit for sure. Yeah. I mean, but I have been producing a lot of content. And so I don't actually try to watch everything because I just get too busy on things. And I've learned to trust that, you know, this is just a conversation, and life will move on.
Yeah. What's the motivation? What's driving this platform for you? Because I know your job has gotten way away from doing calculations and roadway design and
Well, so it's a great question, Glenn. And so this all started with just Matt Lampa and I sitting here and like, let's just talk about our project. And that's all it was. We had no plans to do anything. It was just Matt and I sitting here. And I thought it was fun. We got really good feedback, and we were just talking about our project. And it really led to this idea of like, this is real public engagement. People were watching it, man. And I was like, why are people watching us? But, so Matt and I we did this probably the first time. I was like back in February or March or something, right? It was really, and because it went so well, I was talking to Wes over here, and I was like, hey, let's do this again and let's get in some guests, right? And so then we brought in our legal counsel, we brought in our traffic engineer, we brought in our environmental engineer, and we're just talking about the connector. But one of the people, and I gotta give him a shout out, who really inspired this was the executive director of Sacramento Transportation Authority, Kevin Busey. Kevin came in, and I was just like looking for somebody to come in. I was just like, hey, Kevin, why don't you just come in? We could talk about some of this legislation that you're doing. And I didn't give him any chance to think about it. It was just like that day. I was like, can you be here like in an hour? And he he came in, and so shout out to Kevin for just like doing it, right? And so he sat here and he's like, Derek, you should invite Will Kempton, right? You should invite, so-and-so from Caltrans and blah, blah, blah. You should actually make this a thing. And I was like, that's a really great idea, Kevin. And so I did invite Will, but he's busy at this exact moment. But I was like, you know what? I do know a fair amount of people. Yeah. Like I really do. And so I wanted to invite you on because, you're a seasoned transportation engineer, right? 25 years of doing this. Tell me a little bit about your perspective on the industry. What's exciting you right now about what are some of the big projects that maybe you're interested in, the work that you're doing? Let me hear it. Let me hear it.
Well, as far as projects that I'm interested in, I mean, I'm a roadway designer at heart. And even though I'm managing projects that involve multi-disciplines, things like that, I'm still that roadway design engineer at heart. So I'm looking at roadway types projects. As a regional transportation lead at BKF, we're focused on the Sacramento San Joaquin Valley, trying to grow our business there. So there's a variety of different types of projects. I've managed freeway interchange projects, road widening projects, planning studies, um, bicycle pedestrian path type projects.
Those are huge now.
They are, because it seems like the funding is a little bit easier for those types of projects. I mean, funding is a big piece of the change in the industry, finding the dollars.
What do you mean by that? Elaborate.
Well, I think you can speak to the fact that I'm assuming in our conversations, the majority of your job is out looking for money, right? Trying to help find the funds to build the project that you have, right? So
It's like a game of hungry hippos, right? The dollars are out there floating around. You just gotta just grab them, right? You're like, I gotta find,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Is that what all these toys are for that are laying
Why is that
around?
a toy? Why do you think that's a toy? Just kidding. That's my son's Lego Corvette, man. My 11-year-old built that thing. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
So every time we have one of these episodes, I'm like, hey, boys, give me a car. Right. And so I'm trying to change it up.
Okay.
So that
I got a Corvette.
You did. You did. I should have got a Mercedes. Is what I know you love them. I know you, that German engineering, right? No, I mean, so my son, he's 11 now. And I mean, dude, he can just do these crazy complicated Legos. And it's just my way of bringing a little bit of the family life into the podcast.
I love that.
I've got my 2 golden shovels, right?
Yeah.
So there they are, So
I think I've seen you in pictures and things like that out there. Those are the actual shovels that you
no,
use?
those are for the podcast.
Or is that for your backyard too?
All right, so let's talk about the funding environment, right? So you guys at BKF, you're servicing clients in the Sacramento San Joaquin Valleys. Big part of your job is helping your clients find funds, right?
Sure.
I mean,
Absolutely.
how are you approaching that?
Well, we have in-house funding experts, and I think a lot of firms nowadays have, some kind of funding group, people that spend full time looking for different funding options. I think it is a full-time job to stay on top of the ever-changing environment related to the different types of fundings, when the funding applications are due, what's going to be necessary to be included in those funding application packages. That is a full-time job
No
in and
doubt.
of itself, right?
Yeah, because it's the nature of the industry, right? Is that, it's like if you're selling water to people who are turning on their faucet and they're paying their water bill, you have a source of revenue
Right.
for your water infrastructure, right? You go to the airport, you're buying a plane ticket, there's a source of revenue for improvements at an airport. But, transportation, it's a gas tax, right? It's a proxy that goes into these state highway accounts, and then it filters its way into a myriad of programs that are constantly changing, right? What are some of the things that you've seen change in the last? I mean, I remember when the Highway Bridge Program was everything. It was like we were just always chasing bridges. It feels like we're chasing bike path projects now, but what are you seeing out there?
Well, active transportation projects, ATP, is definitely one of the bigger funding sources. One of the things that a lot of local jurisdictions seem like they can take advantage of, especially if you have a disadvantaged community within your jurisdiction. There's opportunity there. Those funds come out, on a regular basis. So I think it's a good opportunity for local jurisdictions to, try to do improvements within their community. And I like bike ped type projects. They're enjoyable to work on as somebody that likes to ride their bike occasionally as well. Feel like there's a benefit. I understand there's lots of different types of users of those facilities, different comfort levels, things like that. So I can appreciate that from a user's perspective, trying to help facilitate that on behalf of the local jurisdiction. It's enjoyable, right? You want to do things that, help serve the community. I'm thinking in the back of my mind, driving down the road and seeing a project that you participated in, and you say, honey, look at that. And she says, stop it. I don't want to hear it. But
One of my first early dates with Megan, we went up, I think I drove her through the Red Hawk Parkway interchange. All right. And I think it was still under construction. And I was like, no, I can go through. Oh my gosh. Well, that was one of my, so I just have to say it. I mean, the Red Hawk Parkway interchange was one of my funnest projects, man. And it was so complicated in terms of the grading, and like we were blowing up mountains like with dynamite, type of thing. That's pretty rare. At least it has been for me.
What made it enjoyable though for you? What part of that project? The end result, because it's such a iconic structure and it's
I don't know.
Visible and it's really beautiful.
Yes, I think if I look back on it, that's it is worthy of remark, right? It's a very unique design, trumpet shape, lots of different elevation changes. And I think that, I don't know if at the time it was enjoyable to be working on it because it was so, I mean, I was in the fire. I think C.C. Myers was the contractor on that, and they were moving so fast, and so it was definitely very high stress, a lot of work in environment there. But at the end of the day, I think it's a beautiful project. And, I look at these things as almost like little trophies, right? Like, look what I did, this type of thing. What's one for you of a project worthy of remark that you're like, oh man, I'm really proud of that one?
Well, as we're talking about this, I'm thinking about maybe some of the projects that are not as shiny, but more enjoyable along the way, if that makes sense. So the team that got put together, and then the end result, and then the client's reaction. So I'm thinking about a project for the city of Sacramento, their outdoor dining program. So after COVID, during COVID, there was the necessity, because of the health guidelines and things, to, bring more people outside. City of Sacramento had an outdoor program that was expiring. They had a temporary program, and that program was expiring. There was a lot of mix-matched type of facilities downtown for their outdoor program. So what they were trying to do is standardize their program. And so they hired HDR, where I worked at the time, to come up with this set of standardized criteria and try to make it easier for local businesses to, re-up their permit and get on this program. And so, it's pretty, vague project, really small, relatively small budget associated. But what we were able to do, besides just, developing a set of standardized criteria, we did 3 different civil design layouts, 3 structural layouts, and then an electrical concept that allowed the local businesses there to go ahead and, mix and match. And then the cool part of that project was working with our outreach department to come up with an online tool, some branding and messaging that could be put out to the business community there within the city of Sacramento. Went and visited 6 different businesses personally to go ahead and see their site-specific conditions. Again, these were standard plans, so they had to be customized from there, but at least it gave businesses an idea of what it might look like and what it might cost. So there was an online tool that allowed them to come up with the engineer's estimate of probable construction costs for these different designs. a really interactive website that the customers could go ahead and put in their information. It would print directly to the permit, and then from there, again, make it easy. I forget our slogan: easy, safe, convenient, something along those lines, to make it just easier for the business community. Again, at that time, post-COVID and things, it was really well received by the city council when it was presented, and then the client was ecstatic. So, and I actually just had lunch with that client recently, and we walked by an outdoor dining facility, and he said, "Look at what you did." And so, again, not like a super flashy interchange, but again, like
Enjoyable experience.
enjoyable experience
Yeah.
because of the team.
Worthwhile.
Yeah, fulfilling, right?
Yeah, fulfilling. That's a great word to put it. That's right, man. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that I have anything like that, but
Well, that's not even like traditional roadway engineering, right?
it's not at all. You're just a solution maker at that point.
Right.
Solution maker. I remember some of those years around 2020 when there was so much uncertainty, and all I kept saying was move forward, go faster, right? Because for us, it was just can't get lost in the distraction. We need to get our projects out and built. And we ended up getting the most amazing bids ever when that was all going down, that 2020, 2021 timeframe. So that's just, a little blip in history. I don't know that we'll ever see construction prices like that again, but we were getting smoking good deals when those projects were being bid. So, so that's almost like the client has to trust a leader in that situation, right? You have to, that's not about the technical skills, like you just said. It's about the leadership stuff. What are some of, if you were to talk to a young engineer coming out of Sac State, right? Just got out of his structures class and he's finally passing. And what would be some of your advice to a recently or approaching student who's graduating with a degree in civil engineering? What would you tell them?
Well, I would first and foremost, if they haven't done this already, it's not too late to go back and make sure that you know the folks in your class, that you're friendly with them, that all of those folks are going to become people that you interact with in the industry. They're going to end up I've always been on the consulting side of things, but they're going to be people in your class that become the executive director of the Southeast Connector JPA, right? Or, the director of other local agencies, and even at lower levels. The point of, what we do in consulting is, we're trying to establish relationships at all levels within the organization, right? And some people are not decision makers, and then there's even folks above those decision makers that are not in the weeds of, deciding who's going to be in it. Maybe I think you're still in there, Derek, right?
I don't know, Glenn. I have no idea.
Anyways, yeah. So, just knowing, getting to know the people that you work with in school, because you're going to see them around, and it's good to have a relationship with them. And
That's such good advice. So, you said that you've been in the private consulting world your entire tenure, right?
I have, yeah.
Why? Like, why not? What's the draw to the private sector versus the public?
There's more money.
Yeah. Sure. Of course.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
it.
that's part
It's
of
money.
it. Yeah. I think it's delivering projects in a different capacity. I'm sure public service is enjoyable, and I've considered it at different times throughout my career, but there's never been the right opportunity that I felt compelled to want to leave what I was doing.
Yeah. But if you're a brand new college grad, you're looking for jobs. I suggested private sector, and I suggested it because of one, I think there's a more fun atmosphere. I think, when you're in a private company with a lot of young engineers, you guys are going to go out, you're going to do the team building, you're going to be, happy hours and doing all those kind of things. And I'm not saying that the public sector doesn't do that, but you have such a variety of projects, variety of clients. People are dealing with so many different things. Your thoughts on college grad debating public versus private? Yeah, there's the money thing, but what else? I mean, what are some of your thoughts there on what a young college graduate should be considering?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I like to ask somebody that I'm interviewing, somebody new, usually they're younger, is if they like what they're doing. Do you like roadway engineering?
Yeah.
Because if you like it, it's not going to feel as much like work. You're going to enjoy it. It's going to be something gratifying. So I think you could get that public versus private. I think you could get a variety of different types of projects, public versus private. I'm sure there are nice folks in public, of course. So I don't know. I think there's certainly more flexibility in public as far as like the number of holidays you get. The retirement is nice from public.
Yeah.
But private is kind of where I started. And back in 2003 when I graduated and when I was looking for a job, there wasn't the same environment as far as the available jobs and the high demand that there is now, right? So, yeah, I think there's great options on both sides. I'm not sure I would say you should definitely do private over public.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, good answer, man. So I got to come back to the industry as a whole and what's out there that is, interesting to you. And one of the things that has, captured my interests are some of these projects around the Olympics down in LA. I'm interested, not strange, but interestingly enough, about the replacement of the Francis Scott Key Bridge over there on the East Coast. That big bridge that got smacked and collapsed. How about you? I mean, what are some things across the industry that you have found to be notable or interesting that capture your attention?
They're not big fancy projects like that.
You could say the Capital Southeast Connected.
I would
kidding.
love to work on that project again. Yeah. What's available?
I'm
Derek?
just
No.
so funny.
No, my focus is really on local jurisdiction projects, and specifically some of the jurisdictions of San Joaquin County, including San Joaquin County, City of Stockton, Antigua. Those areas.
A lot of movable bridges in that area, right?
Yeah, but it's the clients.
Okay.
First of all, I really enjoy the clients from those jurisdictions, and when you work with good people, both on your own team but also the jurisdiction team, I used that word fulfilling before. It adds to that, right? You want to be around and work with people that appreciate you and what you're doing and see it from your side, and that's not always the case. I think there's some jurisdictions out there that they feel like their job is to beat you down, both from a financial perspective. When changes happen, things come up. I think some of them feel like it's their job to, I don't know if take advantage is the right word, but to manage you in a way that doesn't allow any kind of change to the contract. And that's not what the job is. You can't, when we, in the beginning of a project, write a scope and a fee, we make some assumptions. We, even including all of our years of experience, we try our very best to include everything to the best of our ability, but you just can't project everything, right? And so sometimes there's changes associated with that. And so, having clients that understand that and can see both sides.
Be willing to work with you.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I've got some horror stories on that, but I don't know that I'll air them right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know
You're the type of person that has been somebody that
what
can see it from the
Oh,
other
okay.
side
I
and
thought you were gonna say,
was willing to work, because
all right. I thought you were gonna go the other way and say I'm hammering people though. What's your question for me, Glenn? Like, what do you want to know about all? Because this isn't just an
I
interview
know
with
how
you.
you got here and things. It's something you should be proud of, Derek.
I'm proud of myself.
You've got, I would say the best project in the Sacramento area, San Joaquin area.
You think that?
I do.
Oh, wow.
I do. I'm not just
Okay.
because I don't want to stroke your ego. I don't need to do that. Nobody needs to do that for you, Derek. But I do think it's a fantastic project. It serves a need. I've lived adjacent to the connector for many years. I know as somebody who travels it, there's a need there, and what you're doing is admirable. And then again, like just the position that you're in to be so far away from what we were doing in school to what you're doing, to, going to Washington, D.C. to, advocate on behalf of not just this project, but this region.
Yeah.
It's admirable.
Thank you. Thank you. If you have questions about the connector, go ahead and email Matt. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I say the story that like I knew what I was doing, but I didn't know what I was getting into. So that's kind of how I've always thought about this project. Is I always wanted to work on big projects, and this one's right here. So it was the entry into that. But then you never really know how the real world works on some of this stuff. It's so complicated to manage 5 different agencies, and somebody's always upset, man. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Somebody's always upset.
Yeah.
And, I just kind of roll with it. One of the interesting things for me about working here is basically this is where I've been when having a family. So I started working here as a project manager when my wife was pregnant with my first child, and now I have 3 of them, right? So there's definitely, an element of going through some fire and having some competing time interests on, what's important. And that's definitely changed a lot for me over the years. And that's what having kids does, having a family does. So
maybe circling back to some changes I've noticed in the industry. I don't know if anybody's talked to you about this. I don't think we've ever talked about this. Just the different mentality of the younger generation coming out of school in regards to their professional engineering licenses.
what are you seeing?
Both the FE as well as the PE. There's just an unwillingness, or I don't know if lack of motivation is the right word for it, but I don't know. When you and I were in school, we wanted to get the FE out of the way before we graduated. And then as soon as we had the opportunity to take the PE, we were taking the PE, right? And I remember having somebody tell me that you weren't an engineer until you passed your professional engineering license. And that like really stuck with me. And, I wanted to get it anyways, but then having somebody say that to me sparked something. But yeah, but nowadays the younger generation, I don't know if they're a little resistant to the responsibility part of it, but I was just sitting down 2 nights ago with some old coworkers, some younger folks, and one of the guys there had just taken but didn't pass his FE exam, which he's been working now for 2 years. I think it's there's just
You got to pass the test.
Well, you gotta get those things out of the way early as possible, right? And then as far as the PE goes, you've got to try to take that as quickly as you can because, like you just said, as your family grows and your responsibilities grow and things like that, it just gets more and more difficult. So that's certainly something that I'm noticing in the industry. And when I talk with other industry folks, they're seeing the same things.
I don't know how you fix that. Maybe you should do some guest lecturing and motivate some people, right?
Tell them that they're not. Yeah, let's go.
Crack the whip.
Well, you talk at Sac State here and there, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you need to tell them, hey, you're not an engineer until you pass that exam.
I don't have any real exposures to that, the fresh graduates. A few years ago, the Connector JPA sponsored the senior project for, Sac State. And that was probably 5 years ago now. And the board loved it. I loved it. It was fun. I bring the students in here, buy them all pizza.
Which segment? The C?
Yeah.
There in Sheldon?
Sheldon. And that was like, solve this problem, right?
Good luck.
Good luck. Good luck. No.
Overpass.
Tunnel. Oh, man. I had a public meeting out there. This is a few years ago. And the variety of opinions on what to do in that area is so hilarious. It's like people would be like, oh, nothing needs to happen. You just leave it. Maybe just improve the shoulders. And then other people are like, no, this thing's got to be a 6-lane freeway. And then you've got people saying, oh, I want a tunnel. Like, I'm not even joking. I want a tunnel. I'm like, that's not going to happen. And then it's like the raised viaduct, right? Oh, we want it up on a raised viaduct. And then there's people who say, let's put it out on a bypass and take it out by the river. I'm like, none of those things are going to happen. Yeah. None of that. But thank you for the creative ideas. So, yeah, I don't know how to respond to the fresh graduates and things like that. I think the talent will always percolate up to the surface, and you got to find them. And I tell the kids, just work your butt off.
Yeah,
that's
they're still talented. It's just a different mentality about wanting to have the responsibility, because it is responsibility, right?
Yeah.
When you sign the plans, you're putting your name on
stamp it, right,
on the line, right?
So when I was approaching, taking the professional engineer exam, not a lot of folks in the office that I was working in with at the time had passed it on the very first attempt, and they were like going for the second or third try. And I remember being like, what do you mean you can't pass the test? Like, what does that mean? Right? I was like, I'm going to pass the test. Right? It's not even a question. And I had a study group, and there was 4 of us, and I was like, we're the fabulous 4 first timers, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Of course we were all going to pass it. And there was just no doubt. We put so much study into it. And I took some, you buy the materials, but I took like special courses on, to help you prepare. And I remember leaving, this was all at Cal Expo, right? Because it was, everyone's taking an exam. I remember leaving and saying like, I can smell the ink on my stamp now, right? Like, I knew I passed it. It's not even a question. I was like, how could you, if you're taking this field seriously, you can't go into something like that and fail, So I don't know. That's just how I think. But we've got a few more minutes here, Glenn. I mean, what do you want to know? What do you want to ask?
Well, what do you think about some of the firms in the industry? Is there parity in the industry? Are there some dominant firms that are kind of,
I don't know,
taking over, at least here in Sacramento?
Gosh, man,
San Joaquin Valley?
That's a tough question for me. I don't know.
You try to, as a local jurisdiction, try to share your projects. I think you do have multiple consultant type firms that
we
work
have hired so many people over the last 10 years. I mean, everyone has had some sort of this is a huge project. So there's been so many different firms over the years. I think I've seen the big firms gobble up some of the small ones, and maybe that was a trend for a while, but other firms emerge. There's always new entrepreneurs, but I definitely remember seeing, some of these firms come in that are like bigger than airlines, and they're humongous. And you're like, what? What do you mean you have tens and tens of thousands of employees? It's so interesting to me. But I never worked at a firm like that. The largest firm I ever worked at maybe had 200 people. So that's as big as ever I got, working in the private sector. And, the Sacramento market, in my opinion, isn't big enough for
mega companies.
Exactly. There's a reason why they're in LA. There's a reason why they're in the Bay Area.
Sure.
I think the Los Angeles transportation sales tax produces 30 times the amount of revenue that Sacramento County does.
Wow.
Right. So those are numbers I remember from 5, 6, 7 years ago. They could be more today. So,
yeah.
I don't know. What else do you want to know? I don't know that I can tell you about the state of like other engineering firms and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's on your mind?
You're shaded from that. You're in a different lane.
What would you say is some of your leadership transition, right? Because you've kind of gone through that path of being certainly a designer, right? We all have been through there, but now you're more in senior leadership. How would you provide some advice, or what has some of your experience been kind of growing in your career field?
Well, I had some advice early on from some mentors about making sure that you take your time and that you learn everything that you need to, which is difficult because some of the things change, right? The Caltrans manual gets updated on a yearly basis now. The stuff is generally the same, right? It's the same resources, but making sure that you've built a foundation so that you understand what it is that you're doing, so that when you are in a position with local jurisdiction folks or a public meeting or something like that, you know what you're doing. You have the confidence, that preparation that we were talking about, right? Maybe it's the years of preparing,
Yes.
right? So just not getting ahead of yourself to make sure that you know what you're doing.
Do you know what you're doing, Glenn?
I do, but just from a leadership perspective, the way that I mentor folks is, first of all, I make it clear that I don't know everything, right? Because it's all constantly changing. But I want to have staff that work for me that are helping me, right? So I may have read that passage in the Highway Design Manual or MUTCD or whatever the reference is, 10 or 15 years ago now, right? And I remember it. I think I remember it, right? So I'm going to communicate to my staff, this is what you should do. This is the way that I remember it. And then I'm going to point out the specific section of where that is in that manual so that they can read it themselves. And then I want to empower them to come back and tell me this was right or wrong, so that I know it. Right now, they're supporting me too, right? I think that dynamic as a leader helps me, but it also empowers them, right? So that they take an ownership of it. So, yeah, that's a leadership style that I like and appreciate. Yeah.
Excellent. Well said, my friend. And I think we will wrap it up right there. So great to have you on this show, Glenn. Oh my gosh, it's been 25 years. And
25 years. Yeah.
I've got to get up to El Dorado Hills and have, a nice meal and,
Sure.
and drink with you and the fam. Say hi to Erica. And, we'll do this again, sometime. And thanks for coming on, Glenn.
Thank you.
All right.